All right. Hi, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Excess Succeed. This is Gearface. I'm joined once again after a long hiatus by my good friend Blue. Blue, thank you so much for being here.
They call me a hiatus man for a reason.
It's true. Yeah, that's what everyone all the time calls you. That's your most famous nickname in the Exceed community. Super excited to have you back to tell me a little bit about uh, one of the, I feel like before Exceed was Exceed and it was just Red Horizon, right? Like no Seventh Cross, no Street Fighter. We needed a mascot character for the season, and I feel like Reese is one of them. So like one of the OG like quote unquote main characters of Exceed that we're talking about today, and people who Blue, you were there at the time playing. You can correct me if I'm wrong. But yeah, really excited to learn a little bit about this guy.
Now you have it about right. He was using a lot of marketing material for Exceed, and he, just judging from his design, was definitely intended to be a protagonist type, considering he's the first published Shoto
Yeah,
in Exceed.
yeah, I can see that. And often, I mean, given how fighting games work, you need to have your Ryu, your Mario, your Mr. Stable set of tools that lean in an offensive or defensive direction. I can't wait to in the comments of this video to debate exactly what a Shoto is again. Um, Before we get to all that, and before we get to the lesson as well, quick disclaimers as always before we get started. Number one, play Exceed for fun. That's a pretty easy one. We're going to be talking about playing Exceed to win on this show. Often those two things line up and dovetail pretty nicely together. They don't always. If the lines of play that we're talking about don't sound fun to you and you'd prefer to play in a different way, you should play that way. You will play more if you're having fun. You'll get better in the long term. And it turns out you'll have more fun doing it when you're playing for fun. Um, Disclaimer number two is that we don't know everything. Um, Exceed's obviously not a solved game. Even a character as old and storied as Reese has things that are left to discover about him. Um, with a character this old, it's pretty easy to fall into speech patterns of always do this, never do this. Take all that with a grain of salt. Um, there are obviously nuances to everything that we might not be able to cover here. And if your line differs really significantly from what we're talking about in the lesson, it's possible that we missed something, and I'd love to hear from you. Um, yeah. With all that said, Blue, please take it away and tell me a little bit about Reese.
All right, so you normally also give the disclaimer about prescriptive play, which like normally doesn't actually apply that much. Anyways, this is Reese. This is a Red Horizon character, and just like all other Red Horizon characters, he actually does have less decisions to make with some of his tools than other characters. So first things first, this basic mode mostly fake.
Okay.
It's decent. Within the context of a different character's kit, I could even see you actually taking good advantage of this basic mode. Anyways, he has like the most fucked up exceed mode in the game. It's like probably top five.
Whenever Reese stuns an opponent, he gains advantage. Whenever Reese initiates a strike on the first turn after a strike, he has +2 power. Yeah, that's a lot.
Among the freest +2 powers in the game.
Yeah, and I mean, in Red Horizon, you were mentioning just now that there are certain evaluations that Red Horizon characters kind of don't have to make because not all of their tools are all stars, and some of their tools are like capital letters all stars. Um, Another kind of hallmark of Red Horizon design is that +2 power was kind of printed on a lot of characters' exceed modes in some way or another. This is a pretty easy one to get. Um,
Yep.
I should kind of expect if I'm in the succeed mode, if my opponent is like being proactive and trying to take trying to make progress on my life bar, or if I gain advantage, which I can do. Um, Seems like a pretty easy way to just maintain plus power for the rest of the game.
Yeah, it feeds into the part where if you stun the opponent, you gain advantage. So it
Yep.
makes your mix-ups extremely threatening. And then, if you read any of Reese's cards, which obviously we will do as part of this lesson, you will notice that he actually has a lot of instances of hit gain advantage just printed onto his attacks. So he has a lot of combo starters to just force the opponent to hold shit,
Okay.
in addition to stunning them.
Okay. So I can. So the mix up you're talking about, like, I'm in exceed mode. I implicitly have plus power because my opponent just struck into me or whatever. I can threaten something that has bonus power that would stun them. Or if they throw a block or something like that, I can just throw something that already has hit gain advantage on it so I can take the next turn anyway.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Cool. Yeah, that sounds scary. And then, you empty your hand, you hit them 5 times in a row, um, and many or maybe all of those hits have bonus power on them. The game is now over.
Yeah, if you land 5 attacks in a row on the opponent, like, you literally take 5 turns in a row, the opponent has probably died.
Yeah. Okay.
I've tried to do that challenge of take 5 turns in a row with Reese, and the opponent's life bar usually is the thing that stops me from getting
That's
there.
the limiting factor, not like not the options that you have, not the hand management. It's literally just like, oh man, you died already.
Yeah, yeah, like, "Oh, shit, I got to 3, and then the opponent died, damn it."
Okay. Okay. This is a good problem to have for Reese, I feel like. If the object of the game is to win the game, my opponent being dead before I could do all of the cool stuff I wanted to do feels like I could be doing worse.
Yeah, and, because of how Reese works, where he can just pop off like fucking crazy whenever he starts landing mix-ups, he's basically never out of the game,
Hmm.
which is a really nice thing to feel, especially with a character that has, kind of volatile tools considering he's a Red Horizon character. But he
So
at least has, like, of Red Horizon kits, some of the less volatile tools because he does still have a Shoto kit.
right, sure. He's got sort of like the prototypical version of a Shoto kit, maybe we can get into. But so from what you're saying, he's great at making comebacks. Should I be expecting to make comebacks as Reese? Should I expect to be like exceeding at a life deficit and clawing my way back into the game uh, on an opponent who has an advantage on me, or can I just kind of steamroll them from the start of the game?
It would be a lot better if you plan on steamrolling them.
Okay,
'Cause if they never have a chance to mount a comeback, that's much better than you needing to win, like, 2 or 3 mix-ups in a row to make a comeback.
sure, okay,
Uh,
and like yeah, a game I have well in hand is always better than a close game for my heart rate and my mental health, obviously. But like, I'm comparing this to things I've heard about like Emogene or Turnalaus, who really the expectation is that they're going to get beaten up for a long time in the early game and have a life deficit, and that doesn't matter as much. With Reese, it's kind of like, yeah, I would prefer to just maul my opponent, but if I can't just maul my opponent, I'm never out of the game.
yeah, closer to
Okay,
that,
okay,
which your tools, if you just, like, glance at the board, you can see 1, 2, 0, which that 0 is a lie, 4, 2, the ultras are lies, we'll get to those later because we actually need to do a little bit of math on them. The math on checkmate is not a lie, that just is straight up a printed 8 for 3
that's just
gauge.
8. Sure,
Um, but the math on Sovereign Glory is a bit of a lie. But
right,
yeah, so the printed powers are not amazing, but they are still fundamentally Shoto tools. They augment the mix-ups that normals innately offer, while
right.
also offering you more relevant options at the ranges where exceed happens consistently.
Okay, sure.
Which is corpo speak for saying the character is able to play the game nicely.
Right. The normals are already active and online at ranges 1 to 4. They have holes in them that, you know, I don't the normals don't provide a speed 7 button at range 2. They don't provide a range 1 spike, stuff like that, right? Like and characters who can um staple additional options into the same range where normals are played makes them scary because most of the game will be played in normals range. Is that right?
Yep,
Okay, makes sense. All right, so we skipped right over basic mode, and it sounds like in my head when I'm playing the game, I should also be kind of skipping over basic mode. Reading it really quickly, whenever Reese stuns an opponent, he may pay 1 gauge to gain advantage. As you said, that seems quite strong. The pays 1 gauge thing gets me farther away from this, right?
yep.
From my flip side. Is that kind of the long and short of why I don't really want to be committing resources to this?
Yeah, you would most games much rather not delay your exceed mode and then also commit your gauge to throwing Sovereign Glory or Checkmate after you exceed.
Okay, sure. So gauge generation in Red Horizon is not super easy to come by. Some characters have like a little bit of extra here and there, but for the most part, you're winning or landing hits to gain gauge in the first place. Three
Yep,
is not a lot. You don't need to you block cross. You're you're doing fine on gauge. Um, but Red Horizon characters also tend to be um pretty spendy, right? They need to maybe dip into their gauge to play neutral and things like that. Um, How difficult is it to actually secure Reese's Exceed mode uh, by the time I need it?
Not particularly.
Okay. So harkening back to a previous lesson that we had together about Vega as a point of comparison, um, the man who you are throwing the game if you are spending your gauge for anything other than what you need to be spending the gauge on. Reese, is that sounds like a little bit freer than that?
Definitely freer than that. Reese has a different issue, and it's a really funny issue for a Shoto to have, but Reese has really bad neutral.
Okay. Okay, interesting. So neutral and exceed, I'm assuming we're talking about spacing, maybe boosting issues. Is that the kind of thing that he struggles with?
Yeah, he just like as we'll find out when we look over his boost kit, he just like barely has any boosts that are actually worth playing. So he basically is relying on the boosts, like the innate quality of the classic normal boosts
Right,
in terms of neutral utility. He has
right.
like one or two that are pretty solid. But they're mostly conditional or weird. So he's mostly a character that wants to be pressuring the opponent. And his pressure relies on his exceed mode to really work. So he still does have issues where I need to get to 3 gauge to exist.
Okay. Okay. And then when I do exist, I'm immediately a problem for my opponent.
Yeah, yeah. When he exists, he turns into like Norwegian death metal or some shit.
Okay. All right, yeah, sure. No, that's a solid comparison. He looks like he might listen to it. Um, so level one assumption about Reese, I should never be using my front side ability, like ever, ever.
That is essentially true. Yeah, that's true for like 95 to 99% of cases.
Okay. And the situations where I would, it sounds like are going to present themselves because they are so scary and so relevant that I need to take 2 turns in a row to get out of something that is going to delay me from getting to my exceed mode, which is my actual win condition.
Yeah, more or less.
Okay. Makes sense. And then at 3 gauge, I flip. Um, and at 3 gauge when I have time, I flip. And then for the rest of the game, I'm just, you know, some hand management and one hit away from just running the opponent over.
Yeah, more or less.
Okay, cool. Sounds good. Shall we talk about the kit?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, where do we start?
Um, let's start with the lowest speed. So this attack is bad.
It looks it.
Um,
This is like okay, so it's 1 to 4, 2 or more. Um, 1 5. Eeh.
yeah. So
That
this attack
this
is
is
kind of like uh Ken's knee bash, where it's a
Nibash,
utility Tatsu adjacent shape
right?
that you're never super excited about playing. With knee bash, you're not excited about playing it because it costs a gauge to actually play,
Right.
and also it's inconsistent on defense. With Gallon Defender, it's inconsistent on defense in all caps. It's not very consistent on offense either.
Your
This is
opponent
mostly
just
a range 4
just
play.
sweeps you, right? Yeah, if you're playing this at sweep range, you're taking your life into your hands.
Yes. However, remember, we're Reese. We are scary, especially in exceed mode. So sometimes this is a thing you can throw out and see if the opponent flinches. The opponent isn't necessarily incentivized to grasp into Reese's exceed mode mix-ups, but like if you're representing a varied set of options, they will sometimes need to throw grasp to cover dumb shit, and this beats stuff like grasp or cross.
Okay. Yeah, and cross. You know, often beating sweep is actually something that I do want something that hits 1 to 4 to supplement my normals mix up because a lot of the normals lose cleanly to cross. Um, so like in the annals of bad exceed attacks, this isn't like even bad Red Horizon decks. This isn't like Fusion Bane. This isn't like the worst thing I've ever seen in my entire life. But it is a role player and not a game plan. It sounds like.
Yeah, yeah, this is a functional attack that I'm never too hyped to play, and also I just don't generally play it that often. But it's an attack. It's 1 to 4. It's actually reasonably safe at range 4 because it underspeeds sweep and it
Right.
trades with dive and it trades up on dive. It loses to a bunch of random shit, especially EX dive, which is a relevant defensive play. But if the opponent initiates into you, this is not the worst thing to defend with in the world at
Yeah,
range
sure.
4.
Yeah, range 4, sure. Yeah, and I mean, it's sort of kind of a. It's not a move don't move mix up, right? It's moving in, but uh it performs the don't move part of the don't move side of the mix up by dodging sweep.
Yep, it
Okay,
it doesn't trade very nicely into focus, but that's Reese life.
true. Okay, and I mean, in the situations where I'm dodging sweep, I'm hitting for 2. Um, I would prefer actually probably to tank a dive and hit back for 7.
Yeah,
Okay,
basically.
I mean, I guess in both cases I'm winning by 2. It doesn't actually, the I took some damage, my opponent took some damage. Our life bars are progressing faster in that situation. If I have a bust to catch, maybe it's better that way. But I'm not like I'm not winning more. In fact, I'm winning less if I trade than if I dodge something successfully.
That is true.
Okay.
And also it can hit for 4 because Reese succeed mode. You can just like add +2 power to
Add
like
plus
all
two
these.
because I often will. Okay, sure. Um, so that's because of how
Now,
free that is to get.
the bad thing is hitting a sweep for 4 does not stun it. So
True.
it is still not very good.
Right, because Reese does care. All right, so this is actually is this like chronologically in like real lifetime one of the first instances of a character who cares about stunning reactively?
That is almost certainly true.
Okay,
I
so
think I
for
think Reese is like one of the first characters that was designed for the game at all. So
that makes a lot of sense. Yeah. So for people who, if this is your first lesson on X to Succeed, first of all, welcome. I'm not sure why you started here, but it's like episode 113. But
they want to know
uh,
about the OG.
I guess so. Yeah. If you want to start at the beginning, you start at Red Horizon. I figure if that makes sense. Um, so what we're talking about is if normally if I throw a grasp into Blue's sweep, I my attack goes off first. He gets thrown to range 3. He hits me anyway. I'm stunned, but that doesn't matter because I've everything on my turn already happened. I already executed my attack to its fullest. Some characters, Guile, for example, cares about being stunned even after that has already taken place because of some effect in his kit. Reese having this, if the opponent is stunned, even if they were faster, gets me advantage.
Yep.
Okay, and that is going to be very relevant to maintaining this combo that we're trying to start.
Yes. Parentheses. It matters because normals.
Right.
Because if we glance over at the immediate next card, we'll talk about boosts later because they're mostly not relevant.
Okay, sure.
You can see that we jump from speed 1 to speed 4, so we're already out of the range of slows. Although this is still essentially a slow.
Okay.
Anyways, we jumped from a kind of bad card to probably Reese's actual best card.
Okay. So this
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 is
is this is a Tatsu. Like this is like a classic Tatsu.
yeah, this is the Tatsu.
Yeah.
And you may note from it having perfectly middling stats and a unconditional hit, you gain advantage. Uh, this is probably top 3 best Tatsus in the game.
Yeah. So the point of comparison that I would immediately make is to Ryu's Tatsu. Hits for 1 more
Which,
power, but it only gains advantage on cross up.
yep, I have nicely
Yep.
pulled it out here because that
Yep.
was exactly what I was thinking as well.
Okay. And I mean one less speed off also often relevant, although with that much guard, you're probably 3 and 4 speed for guard is they're like this is a little bit less safe than 4 and 4.
Yeah,
But
um, this is an attack that you can play on offense or defense, and it will almost always work, and it will almost always do something useful.
yeah, yeah, it seems very mashable at range. Also, and just the fact that I can gain advantage out to range 4, right? The unconditional advantage part of that the Ryu needs to sort of uh, be close enough to actually move past his opponent. You can deny it by going into the corner. This just does it. It does the thing I want it to do.
Yep, and of
Okay.
course, your Reese. Sometimes it hits for 6, and by sometimes I mean a lot of the time. And if it doesn't hit for 6, then it makes your next attack
The
hit for
next
like
thing is going to
7.
hit for more. Sure. Okay. So in the early game, it is something that I can use to gain advantage without spending gauge, or without delaying my exceed mode or tempting me to delay my exceed mode. In the late game, it's either a combo starter or glue to hold a combo together into a slow, or into a block, for example. But it's just kind of This will always be useful to me.
Yep.
Okay. All right. Seems pretty easy so far. Shall we just move right on to Ballista?
Yeah, sounds good. Anyways, you're talking about the utility of gaining advantage out to range 4. Anyways, there's another attack that gains advantage out to range 5.
Yeah, that's true, and it jumps me in above curve too for 0
Yeah.
power.
This is kind of your analog to like a regular Shoto's Hadoken or Fireball shape, but this is closer to like a Noel Optic Barrel, but it's fast instead of slow.
Right.
Um, I probably don't need to explain to you that this card is kind of bad, but sometimes you need to play it because reasons.
Sure. Sure. Yeah, I'm up against a zoner. Um, I need to. Yeah, that and okay. Yeah, the fact that it's hit close is actually pretty rough in those kinds of matchups too. Um, so like I'm. This is a utility card. It honestly, it sounds kind of similar to what we're talking about with Gallant Defender, where it's something that I'll play when I need to play it, but it's never a game plan.
Yeah, it's better than Gallant Defender because has hit gain advantage printed on it.
Right. Which is a thing I want. Okay. How important is this before effect? I mean, when I have 5 gauge and I'm in exceed mode, this is hitting for 7, which is cool. That is a extremely Red Horizon projectile shape at that point. Um, uh, do I need to be considering that? Am I ever going to be up to 5 gauge?
If you're at 5 gauge in exceed mode and the opponent isn't dead, then they're at 1 life.
Sure. Okay. So that doesn't matter at all. So in practicality, this is probably hitting for like between 2 and 4.
Oh yeah, it's essentially just assault, but it hits 3 to 5 instead of 1 to 3.
Okay. Yeah, that's a good way to think about it. Okay, so and again, because most of the game of Exceed is played within 1 to 3, this is going to be worse than Assault. But if the game has moved past that range, which it can, this is a thing that I can do.
Yep.
All right, makes sense. Um, I'm noticing a trend of yeah, that's pretty straightforward. That seems fair. Um, None of these shapes are particularly complicated.
Yep. Red Horizon is awesome for that. Anyways, this attack is dog shit.
Yeah,
This attack is so bad.
we were talking before the lesson that like again in the annals of Red Horizon, like there are some like power budget is a thing, right? In order to afford this, sometimes I need one of these. But
Yep. Which the things that Reese is affording, because we're not gonna improve in terms of attack quality with Reese's DP other than that it's a DP that exists.
right,
The thing that Reese is paying for is his Exceed mode.
yeah,
Having one of the most busted Exceed modes. For a character like this to be balanced at all, he needs to have really bad card quality.
sure, sure. So this is 1, 2, maybe 4, maybe 6, 6. 1, 6, 6 is pretty great. Um,
Yeah.
And if the opponent has more cards in hand than me, is at least like more relevant of a condition, it sounds like, than for each, max 5 for each card in my gauge. But
Yeah.
you didn't say dog shit with that many O's when we were talking about Ballista as you did with Nightwave. This card's worse.
This card is, if you're playing it, you're basically playing at EX. This card is really funny because it not only has a pretty bad attack on it, it also has a almost completely useless and really funny boost on it.
Okay. Oh, this is my force card then. This is a card that I'm either spending as force or if I have the EX attack. Hey, the EX attack also makes it easier for to get afford its own hit effect because I'll have fewer cards in hand.
See, now you're seeing the vision. That's exactly how you play it as an attack: is EX to surprise the opponent because now you're lower on hand than them. Bottom
Okay.
text.
Got it. All right. End of conversation. Cool. If I just took a turn that hits for 6 or 7 rather. One okay, yeah, 177 after move 1. Um that's good. That's a good attack. 1 2
Yeah,
6 after move 1 is a less good attack.
yeah.
Um
Now you do sometimes play it because similar to a card like Giovanna's Sol Nascente, in the mid range it does have niche utility as a card that allows you to at speed 6 have after move 1.
sure. I mean in the normals mix up at range 3, this actually just lets me nope out just as well as cross does.
Yep.
Um and hey, I sure do wish on a character who it sounds like exists at range 5 but like doesn't exist at range 5. I would kind of prefer to go 1 space back and just dodge out to range 4, or 1 space forward to dodge a dive, than 3 spaces back and then have something need to come back in.
Yeah, notably, range 2 and 4 are a lot better for Reese than range 6.
Right.
So you're absolutely right.
Okay. So utility button, not utility button, actually just like the glue holding the kit together at this point. Utility button. Um in order to, and I have a feeling. Actually, I'll hold off on my question for a second until we talk Gauntlet Fury Flurry. Um this looks like a DP that gains advantage and hits for 1 to me.
Yeah, it is a DP. So you know how people talk about how like, oh yeah, like Spring Raid, Go Shoryu, they're like the meterless DP shape that's a DP and nothing more in Modern Exceed. Anyways, here's the real DP that is just like a DP and nothing more in,
Literally
in all of
only,
Exceed.
yeah, this is above curve at range 2. That is its quality. It gains advantage. I can't knock that. But
Yeah,
it's like this loses to every EX attack in the game, as long as I don't have bonus power on it. Um, it doesn't seem great, right? But
it's bad, but if the opponent plays Shimmer of Madness, then you are counting your blessings that you have a DP at all.
yeah, sure. And I mean, this is a way to deal with cross in the normals mix up. So I mean, the question I was going to ask a second ago, now that we've talked about all of my utility buttons, it sounds like um, a jump in that can dodge a slow is not something that the normals have. Um, a extremely consistent range 1 to 4 advantage gainer is not something that the normals have. Um, a anything at range 5 is not represented anywhere in the normals. Um, this little kind of micro spacing Sol Nascente idea is kind of cross adjacent, but not really the same utility. And a DP. None of these things are in the normals at all. Um, in order to eke all of the value out of Reese's kit and therefore win a game, I assume. I'm looking at these cards as just like additional things that kind of nudge my threat profile in like little subtle directions that like because this is the threat, right? This is the scary big thing that is obviously what I'm going to do to kill my opponent. Am I just treating these all as um little little buttons that I need to keep my neutral like grounded and stable?
Yeah, more or less.
Okay. And you
Neutral
mentioned
and pressure.
earlier you what's that?
Neutral and pressure.
Sure. Okay. And you mentioned earlier that uh Reese's neutral is quite bad and his pressure is kind of conditional. And it sounds like conditional mostly on his exceed mode. So for both of those problems, this is a like I will take what I can get situation. And this is in terms of attacks, this is what I can get. And it's not great, but it's gonna have to be enough.
Yep.
Okay. Okay. And again, the fantasy is very achievable. It's 3 gauge, and then I become a real character and a real scary character. Um, all of a sudden, all this stuff comes online. Um, before we go into boosts and ultras and things like that, I actually wanted to kind of talk more explicitly about like mix-ups, and if you think that this is like a good time to do it, now that we've talked about the specials, um,
Sure.
how like how am I continuing to stun the opponent and gain advantage, right? Like what are the threats that I'm representing versus what my opponent is leveraging against them?
All right, so like the Omega God thread for Reese is 8 power sweep. It stuns everything.
Yep.
So the opponent's goal in life, and also Reese doesn't have ignore armor, so this is actually our ignore armor button. Uh, if the opponent blocks, you hope you played assault or a thing that has a gain advantage on it, or spike if you're at a relevant range.
Right.
Relatedly, spike is very good for Reese because if it hits, it stuns the opponent. Period.
Sure.
So, and it turns out that spike with 5 or 7 power and an implicit hit gain advantage on it is a very good card.
That's a pretty messed up card. Yeah, Spike already wins when it hits. Now it wins about as hard as a card can win.
So thinking of like these being basically our two Omega threats, we can kind of read over Reese's kit and think about how do these relate to I want to play sweep at ranges where sweep hits, which is, ranges 1 to 3.
Right.
I want to play spike at ranges 2 and 3 where it hits, and then I want to play assault in addition to my other advantage cards as combo starters.
Right.
Well,
Okay.
This is literally the range 3 mix-up of
This is the
Exceed.
range 3 mix up, right? Yeah. Dive in place of Spike, but for what I'm doing, stunning the opponent, Spike is better.
Yep.
Okay.
Like our Omega threats are the range 3 mix of Exceed, and then also because one of our strongest and most scary threats is literally an 8 power sweep, which is the thing that we mostly want to play at range 1. Congratulations! In addition to being a Shoto, we're also kind of a grappler.
Okay. Okay. And
And the
that also
opponent is going to be
means
treating us
that also
in the
means
same
that
way.
that assault into range 1 sweep is like my B&B, right? This is without even looking at the rest of my cards, this is the or chivalry into range 1 sweep is
Yep.
is my uh most obvious route to through my hand, basically.
Yeah, and that's pretty good. It hits for the opponent for 12, and they
Gains
just kind of have
advantage
to roll with
twice.
it. Yeah,
Yeah.
and then like the thing that makes Reese kind of fun is that we can make that more complex very simply by going like, oh, my hand is like these. So I can do like assault into chivalry, into gauntlet flurry, into sweep, or I can at range 2 do spike, and then if they don't call it, then I can do gauntlet flurry into sweep.
Right.
And like you can do this with most Reese hands in some way, which is part of what makes the character really interesting and fun.
You can kind of find a path through your hand. I remember honestly, actually, one of the very first lessons I ever had on Exceed was on Ryu from Taxi, and he mentioned the Ryu advantage chain, right? He's got Tatsu, he's got Donkey Kick. I'm not sure if you happen to pull that one out.
I did not,
Um,
because Reese does
uh,
not have a pick.
no, totally. Hold on a second. Let me just see if it's in here. It is not. Um, it's a, it's
This is
a.
the Ryu deck.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, let me while you're in there.
Here you go.
Thank you. Yeah, so he's got enough advantage to kill the opponent. Basically, is what Ryu has. He can 2 copies of Tatsu, 2 copies of Donkey Kick, 2 copies of Assault, and then maybe cap it off with a Metsu Shoryuken somewhere in there. What Taxi told me in this, pre-Excess Succeed, ancient history, young gear face, is that every step of this combo has counterplay. If your opponent crosses out, you still hit them with the Tatsu, but you don't gain advantage anymore. If your opponent um, focuses your Donkey Kick, you gain advantage, but you don't set them to range for the Metsu Hadoken. Like, just having the advantage in your hand isn't enough to let you play out the rest of your hand in this like perfect god combo. Um, it sounds like a similar thing with Reese is like I need to secure a stun, or I need to maintain the threat of a stun by gaining advantage consistently. And every hit that I'm throwing, if I fail to stun, it the combo stops unless it doesn't because of chivalry or gauntlet fury flurry. Is that kind of how I'm
Or
thinking about
Ballista.
this? Yeah, or ballista.
And yeah,
So I'm thinking about this in terms of like the threat on one hand is that they get stunned. The threat on the other hand is that they gain advantage but don't get stunned, and I keep going anyway.
yep.
Okay, cool. And so I'm those are my 2 threats. My opponent is going to be responding with cross to get out of the way of uh chivalry or assault or something or spike. Okay, I hit him with gauntlet flurry. We keep going anyway. Um my opponent is going to be responding with block to deal with the sweep. I hit them with spike. Like it's just basic Exceed mix-up stuff with the added threat of continued advantage.
Yep, and because the character lacks ignore armor, that's actually part of why it's relevant that he has multiple extra copies of assaults.
Right.
Because instead of ignoring armor, it gains advantage into the block.
Sure. Yeah.
Which
And
is
I
also
mean,
why you need to ration out these sources of advantage that work at ranges 1 and 2.
right. Like irrespective of whether you stun them or not. Um. Yeah. And I'm not necessarily rationing out chivalry because that gains advantage out to range 4. That's going to be helpful no matter what no matter what I'm doing.
And because it is so powerful, you need to ration it extra hard. You need to make
Oh,
sure
I
you're
see what
playing
you
this
mean.
at times where it's extra impactful.
Right. And get the most value out of it as you can. Okay. Sure. That makes sense. Um. In these advantage chains, right? Like I have had a lesson on Noel as well. Um, one of the things I think Bana told me about Noel is that it's quite common for Noel to take 4 turns in a row, and the opponent has actually managed to keep life parity or even outmatched her in damage output on her turns because her damage output's kind of weak, and if you don't have a mix-up, you actually can't be that scary, even by taking a lot of turns in a row. It seems like Reese, if played well, does not have that problem.
He doesn't have that problem at all.
Okay, so by taking a lot of turns in a row, my opponent is dying. This is the game plan, essentially.
Yeah, throw
Okay.
mix-ups that are mostly answerable at the opponent that they guess wrong because player psychology stuff, and also like you have chivalry, and we haven't actually talked about his ultras yet, and those are some truly bullshit cards.
Okay.
Uh,
Um,
and leverage the economics of aggression and exceed, and then also just like you're taking a lot of turns into the opponent, so like their hand is getting run down, and we have a couple ways to refresh our hand,
okay.
and the
That
opponent
sounds
won't because they can't take turns.
that sounds like an incredible segue into boosts. Uh, and the rest of my kit. Am I correct about that?
Yeah, more or less.
Tell me about these reload boosts, Blue, and also the
Anyways,
rest of them.
you have one, but it is draw 3 and strike.
Okay. And so in
It
terms
is
of
on Gauntlet Flurry, which means you're giving up a notable threat and also literally a very easy like source of just hit gain advantage
right,
to draw 3.
and
But you can draw
it's
3.
it's a 2 force boost. Um, if I pay from gauge, I'm probably striking from hand. I'm just barely going up on resources by by playing this card, but I am going up on resources, and that might be enough.
Yep.
Okay. It's letting me. So I'm never going to probably be building a huge hand with this card, but if it lets me see more of my deck, it gives me more card selection. Uh, but it is still useful to building a better hand, even though I'm not drawing 6 or something.
Yep.
Okay, makes sense. Um, in terms of evaluating Gauntlet Flurry versus Ambitious, um, any advice, or are both of these cards, both sides of this card are useful, and I should use both as needed?
That one.
Okay,
This is a card where you're going to be using both sides with reasonable consistency.
okay, makes sense. I have a feeling that I mean you already mentioned that uh this boost this sounds like my force card. Like maybe that won't always be true of Reese, where one side of it is has an outsized impact compared to the other. Um, but this one at least is pretty pretty evenly split between the two.
Yep.
Okay.
Anyways, let's talk about one of the giantest memes in all of Exceed, Invitation. The opponent must move 1. You may move 1. Strike. Uh, it sounds like it doesn't do much. That's because it doesn't. The situations where you would want to use this, which does come up sometimes, is where you have relevant options at multiple ranges, and you want to see where the opponent moves before you decide where you're actually committing to throwing a mix-up at.
Okay. So I'm at range 1. They go to range they go to range 2 rather than maintaining range 1. I say, "Oh, you don't want to be there. I'll step forward and strike anyway," or something like that.
Yeah, or like if you're at range 2 or range 3, there's a more dynamic set of positions they can pick from.
Right.
Uh, range 2 would actually be probably the most relevant as far as that goes.
Right. But also I can kind of see the problem here that like in order to actually catch somebody with this, they would need to read the first 5 to 6 words of this boost and then forget to read the rest.
Yep.
Right? Like they do know that after they move, I am going to move too. They aren't actually going to pick a position that they don't think they're picking a position that's good for them by doing this. They think they're doing is giving me information about what they would prefer to uh they would prefer me to think.
Yeah, more or less.
Okay, so that's not actually helpful.
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay. Um is this just force then most of the time?
If you need force, this is a good source of it.
Okay, I would love a way to pay for ambitious without dipping into my gauge in particular. That sounds pretty good to me. Honestly, I feel like with a lot of Red Horizon characters, like because their economies are so tight sometimes, and they have so many uh, really, really, really scary strong things, it's kind of comforting to find a card that is like, just you can just get rid of this. That's okay. it probably won't help you as much as the thing that you're drawing into will.
Yeah, for Reese, like he mostly just spends force for CC, just so he has a hand.
Right. Right. Because he needs to maintain a combo, right? And hand management sounds like a pretty important part of that.
Yeah, just constructing a hand that you can look at and go, okay, I can kill the opponent with this sequencing is the main thing Reese cares about. So, yeah, having
Okay.
an additional source of force in addition to like gauge after you exceed is like pretty good.
Okay. And I mean, in the early game, you started this lesson by talking about how like Reese has like slightly fewer decisions to make than some other characters. In the early game, I would be more pressured to not spend that force from gauge because I'm planning to exceed, but also I'm also not planning to start a murderous combo before I exceed anyway. So like the pressure to spend from gauge isn't as high because I don't need to maintain a hand as crucially as I do in the later game. So I can afford to just hoard gauge for a couple of turns. Is that correct?
That is true. You do still want to have a hand just so you have meaningful answers to the opponent's stuff because you don't really want to fall too far behind
Sure.
in the
It is
early
still
game.
exceed. I'm still like my opponent is still they're not a training dummy. They're taking actions that will progress their game plan, whatever their game plan is.
Yep.
Okay. Makes sense. Easy enough, which is to say incredibly hard because Exceed is a complicated game. Um, shall we talk about backstep and lunge?
All right, this boost is actually really fucking good, but it is kind of janky, which is very very fitting for Red Horizon.
Right.
Now retreat 2 before close 2 is the way you would read that in modern Exceed templating.
Right.
So it makes your attack plus 2 points relative to curve, very very likely to hit. It makes it so that your spike is very unlikely to hit
Right.
because the opponent can position against it trivially.
Right. They stand at range 3 and block, basically.
The now retreat 2 is kind of funny because it um, immediately gives you the range to get value off of before close 2, but also isn't the thing that you actually want to do very often because you're Reese.
Yeah, I mean, what it sounds like is I would prefer to be at around range 3 to range 2 to range 3 to run my mix up effectively, right? If I'm at
Yeah,
range
more or less.
1, if I'm at range 1, I retreat out to range 2 to throw a mix up that is not actually a particularly strong range 3 mix up because I'm going to range 1 first with the
Yep,
before effect. Or I'm already at range 3 and I go to range 5 where I don't want to be, so now I can run the mix up that I was already planning to run at the range I was already planning to run it.
yep.
Okay. Neither of those things sound super appealing to me. But I
Also, the
know
opponent has a turn to react.
right, sure. And they can gum up my positioning just fine. I know from previous lessons that before movement is just like quite strong. Um
Yep.
but it the use cases are not immediately presenting themselves to me. Um what are you using this boost to do most of the time? You said it was good but kind of jank.
You use it in a lot of similar situations as light. It
Okay,
just is a
sure.
really janky light.
Yeah, that makes sense cuz so I'm going 2 points above curve. I'm going uh I'm manipulating speed in a way that my opponent has to react to, which is something that light does. But also, like, I would much rather give up a copy of Ballista than give up a copy of 8 Power Sweep. So this is a copy of light that
Yeah.
I don't really need to worry about what's on the other side of it.
It also, because we have a few guardy moves that are pretty big range anyways, and also, sweep and focus, it makes it so that we can just like confirm safer hits at range. Not when
Hmm.
we're already there, but if we jump out to there.
Okay, so like I go to range 3 or range 4. Now Gallant Defender is dodges sweep and is going to hit you.
Yeah, more or less.
Okay, that makes sense. Or Chivalry is like near it's like this is like 1 to 5 like 1 to 6 now or something gain
Yeah.
advantage. Okay, that's it helps my my big huge hitboxes cover some gaps that they might otherwise have.
Yeah, and if you're cornered, then the retreat doesn't hurt you.
Okay, oh, it's the platinum boost. It's the plus 2 speed now retreat 2 thing.
Yeah,
Or before retreat. I don't remember which one that is, but yeah, no, it doesn't.
before retreat.
Yeah, okay. It allows me to just get the benefits um of the before movement without actually it's sometimes an upside, sometimes a downside to actually do the retreat part.
Yeah, more or less.
Okay,
But yeah,
interesting.
the situations where it comes up and is relevant happen more in real games than I can like really explain. And a lot of it is just your Reese, you really want Gage. You want Gage so badly that just being able to confirm a hit, basically guaranteed, is good enough in the
That's
early
good enough.
game.
Sure. Okay, that makes sense. And in the late game, hey, a lot of those hits are going to gain advantage, and that
Yeah,
is
and
super
you're
relevant.
not really boosting outside of things that strike in the
Yeah,
late game because your goal is to kill the opponent with the hand comp that you have. So
and it's worth reiterating. Whenever Reese initiates a strike on the first turn after a strike, if I boosted, I'm not striking. Uh, my opponent, I'm passing turn to my opponent. If they don't strike either, oh, I don't have my plus 2 power anymore. Um, so boosting at all, with the exception of something like a now strike boost, is actually just going to stop my combo completely.
yep.
Okay, makes sense. Uh, Ballista is not an all star of a card. You mentioned that you will use it if you have to. It sounds like backstep and lunge is a little bit more consistently relevant, at least in the matchups where Ballista isn't. Um, you would probably rate the boost a little bit higher than the attack, but both are probably going to be at least relevant to me.
Yeah, basically.
Okay, I'm down with that. Um, Chivalry is the best card in my kit, as you mentioned. I hope that the boost, I'm reading the boost right now. Okay. I hope that the boost can compete.
No.
Cool. That sounds about right. +1 armor and +1 guard at the start of each of the opponent's turns. So that's one of each, and then they strike into me. I assume is how this plays out.
Yes, and this will be relevant for the next boost we read as well. But if the opponent strikes to diffuse the value of this boost, then they're giving you +2 power.
I see. Okay. I understand. So
This is not worth giving up chivalry for, but
sure,
it is a boost that exists,
but that's the
which isn't
idea.
very good.
But also, in order to be proactive at all into me, they are. It's like the phonon problem, right? Like they do need to take game actions that will allow them to make progress on my life bar. They are going to need to strike into me sometimes anyway, I assume.
Yeah, and Reese does indeed have the same problem as Phonon, where if the opponent strikes into you, he gains inordinate value.
Right.
So it's really awkward.
Okay. Okay. So in practice, if they let this go, now it's +2/+2, which is defend. It's better defend, in fact.
Yeah, it's Stonewall then.
Yeah, and that's like pretty good. That's like marginally better than a pretty solid normal boost. But if this is my best card, is like any amount of armor and guard enough to make me want to use it over chivalry?
If you really need to hit with Gallant Defender,
Okay,
it makes
sure.
Gallant
So
Defender safe.
so
Is what
so,
+1/+1 does.
so they have something that would beat chivalry cleanly, but wouldn't beat gallant defender with a little bit of extra armor and guard.
Which is
That's
a reasonable thing for a character to have. Like,
yeah,
there are cards that exist that do that.
yeah. There are definitely there's a handful, right? Um, but not if my opponent doesn't have that, chivalry makes a very obvious case for itself, and I'm kind of struggling to find it for bracing, and that sounds like it's kind of the story of this card. So spend it,
Yeah,
as,
basically.
use it as chivalry way more often. Bracing is specifically for gallant defender or to force your opponent to strike into you.
Yeah, it's the opponent must strike that actually gives you any value at all. Anyways, speaking of not getting any value at all except the opponent must strike, let's talk about Opportunist, the boost on Gallant Defender.
Got it.
It has text on it. The text doesn't matter. What it reads is the opponent must strike.
Right. And like, okay, I have +2 power because you struck.
Yep.
So I don't actually have +2 speed and +2 power. I have +2 power, and my opponent punched me for it.
Yep. And because you're a Shoto, you might be able to answer their mix-up.
Sure. Okay. Um, this Gallant Defender is a lot less tucked up than Chivalry is. Is it easier to play this boost, even though I'm never, ever, ever going to get the stats that I see on it?
No?
Okay. So if I don't need Gallant Defender, most of the time I'm just going to spend this card as Force.
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay.
I
Easy,
think the
easy
Nightwave
enough.
is more this card is Force than Gallant Defender, but I
Right.
think both of these cards are just mostly bad.
Sure. Yeah, and I mean, like, I would compare this to like Travau or something like that. I would compare this to Solne Sente. Both are utility cards. I might use both of them, but neither of them are game plans. They're not incredible.
Dude, imagine if Reese had Step Dash, that would be so sick.
You know what I mean? He's got some parts of Step Dash, kind of, if you squint and have cataracts. Okay, that's not Step Dash. You're not wrong. Um uh yo, what if Backstep and Lunge was cancelable though?
Oh man, that would be such a cancerous boost.
Yeah, that'd be pretty bad. Okay, so that's the specials and their boosts. Uh, you already mentioned not great on the boost front, not great on the neutral front. I've got a little tiny bit of reload. I've got a fake boost. I've got a really weird copy of light that's probably pretty good. Uh, a now strike boost, or a make my opponent strike boost on my best card. A make my opponent strike boost on a not particularly good card. None of these are eye popping, especially by the standards of Red Horizon, where people just have like +2 range, +1 speed, just on a boost hanging out. Like they just have swift destruction.
Okay,
Um,
plus 2 range and plus 1 speed I don't think exists, but plus 3 range and plus 1 speed exists. That's taking
sorry,
aim.
yeah, that I in my head I thought of +3, +1, and I was like, it can't be that one. That's not. Those aren't real numbers. Oh wait, no, it was real numbers. That's the Lily. That's the Lily boost, right?
Yeah.
I tried to be too reasonable is my problem, and that's never a good idea with Red Horizon. Um,
Yeah.
okay, but my point is, by the comparisons of the numbers that my opponent is probably throwing out, none of these are super relevant. My boost, then the Reese boost, is this one.
This is why I say the character doesn't exist until he exceeds.
Okay, understood. So, hey, constant +2 power is a very good boost. As long as I can keep taking turns, I get it.
Yeah.
And I can take that boost without taking the boost action. In fact, I can take it by taking anything other than the boost action, basically, or the opposite of the boost action.
Yeah, it's pretty sick. And also the opponent can't take the boost action if you're doing it.
Right. Okay. And also, the opponent can give you the boost action by striking into you.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is oppressive. Got it. Got it. Got it.
The
Okay.
character can be very oppressive when he's working. Anyways, let's talk about some really fucked up cards.
Yeah. Yeah. So Red Horizon has a reputation for some pretty janky. I'm sorry, pretty terrifying is the word I meant. I was thinking about janky from the previous conversation. Ultras. They're big. They're dumb. They're ultras. Um, I'm super excited to learn about what that is. A stand, Reese.
Yeah, yeah, he has
Why do you have this
his
golden sun summon ass knight
well,
hanging out?
he's the reincarnation of King Arthur, and he's actually summoning the Knights of the Round as his stands.
Okay, so this ultra takes like 2.5 minutes to resolve while the cutscene plays.
Something like that.
I got you. Okay, 2 gauge is not a lot of gauge. 1 to 3, this is assault stats. Before draw 2, +2 power for each card in hand you have more than the opponent. Wow.
Plus 1, not plus 2.
I'm sorry, +1. Thank you. Yeah, got it confused with draw 2 cards. All right, so that is potentially, if I'm running my opponent's hand down and then I draw 2 cards on top of it, that could be quite relevant.
Yeah. The only problem with this card is that it's a shape that is assault,
Yep.
which is a very janky way to say that it's reasonably answerable.
Right. Yeah, and assault is not a bad card by any means, but my opponent can cross out of it. My opponent has a whirl that hits it above curve, it stops it. It's not a by the standards of the nukes that Red Horizon characters have strapped to their back, it's not Raijin Oath, it's not Uh, Hell Salvation, Heaven's Punishment, whatever the 212-7 that Natalie has. It's not that.
Hell Salvation.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not
Um.
from hell. No magic bullet.
Yeah. Okay. So it's still good. It's also 2 gauge, which is not very many gauge.
Yeah.
Um. What kind of power numbers should I like reasonably expect to have from this card, or maybe like how much power should I be looking for to justify using it? Might be a better way to ask that question.
Well, it starts at 6 because you're Reese.
Yep.
So literally any plus power at all means that you stun sweep.
It's on sweep, sure. Any bonus, and honestly, the draw 2 cards on its own is probably going to get me that if we're at hand parity, or if I have one
Yep.
card fewer than the opponent.
You are seeing the exact idea behind this card. And in
Okay,
addition to it just having draw on it, it probably is going to push you over the opponent's defensive option that now loses to it,
right. Okay,
which means it also has an implicit probably gain advantage on it, in
sure,
addition to
definitely,
nuking the opponent for like 8.
because I'm probably going to be. I would be doing this after I've exceeded because I don't exist as a character until then. Um, and I was about to mention before you told me about that is in fact how the draw kind of impacts things, that I'm running down my opponent's hand by also running down my hand because I'm striking into them and they're draining their resources to try to stop me. But that doesn't give me more cards in hand than the opponent. So it's actually quite likely that we're going to be at fairly close to um, equal
Yep.
numbers of resources until suddenly I'm
Yeah, and
not. Okay.
notably, if they're like if they're leaning really heavily on wild swings to counteract the hand drain of being advantage chained, they're playing options that probably lose to things shaped like Sovereign Glory, and also they're
Sure.
giving you Nightwave.
Definitely. Yeah. I mean, like, this is a very answerable shape, as you said. But like, I don't know. What's that really scary? I got platinum on the brain now because of the boost. What's the really scary platinum command grab? Or like overhead kiss on May? That's a very answerable shape that like loses that like ship, yeah, May. That like loses to the average wild swing. This doesn't. This does just fine into the average wild swing. It would lose to specific crafted options that my opponent is trying to use to call it out.
Yep,
Um, it's
and
consistent
Nightwave
enough,
kind of
in other words.
does the same thing, which is the theory behind Nightwave, even though it's really bad.
Okay, sure, that makes sense. Um, I literally forgot about this hit effect because we didn't care about this card at all. I'm thinking of this as Sol Nascente because I can use it to like step out
Yeah,
of the
yeah,
way of something at range 3. But oh yeah, this is the same or a similar hit effect.
yeah.
It just
It,
doesn't matter nearly as much.
the situations where Sovereign Glory is being played against, Nightwave functions.
I see. Okay. Okay. Um,
Which being functional is not high praise.
okay.
And it can still lose to random shit. But a speed 6 card that hits for like 6, if the opponent is wild swinging into it, is actually a pretty reasonable thing to throw at them.
Sure,
So
sure.
observe your opponent, play against their habits. If they're defending a lot from hand, Sovereign Glory is pretty cool. Sovereign Glory in combination with Ambitious is a pretty giant nuke. If they're wild swinging against you, Nightwave might be more the play. EX Nightwave is pretty reliable as a way to just force through the power, and 177 is pretty mighty.
Yep. Yeah, that all makes sense. Sovereign Glory is obviously better, but it is also an ultra, even if it's only 2 gauge. What about Street Justice is a very funny name for the boost. What about Street Justice? Hey, I found stats. These are actual stats.
Yep. This boost disincentivizes the opponent to exceed because if they exceed then Reese has Way of the Warrior for
Yep.
free
Cheaper Way of the
on
Warrior.
an ultra that is a lot easier to boost than the other ultra. We'll get to the other ultra in a moment.
Okay.
Um, I don't think that it's going to stop a character from exceeding if they really want their exceed mode,
Right.
but it might make a character that kind of wants their exceed mode but doesn't necessarily need it think twice about it. Someone like Vega, for example. Vega, the old quadrangle. He doesn't necessarily need his exceed mode, so he might, instead of choosing to go for his exceed mode, go for hitting you with an ultra and then spamming crits or something,
Right.
in place of
Sure.
doing his exceed mode to deny you the value of Street Justice.
Sure. But let me, a character who absolutely, literally wants their exceed mode every day. It's not going to stop Renea from exceeding.
Yeah,
or Galdred from Exceeding or somebody like that.
yeah. Those
Okay.
those are good, those are good examples. Or like I don't know, to pull out a matchup that I actually think is really cool from Red Horizon. And also you could get this matchup by buying one box, which made it really nice. Heidi.
Oh, sure.
Also
This was
one of
like
the top
your.
exceed modes in the entire game.
This was also like your Exceed mode. This is also like your Red Horizon matchup, right? It was you and your friend uh Teketria, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really cool. Yeah, this is an all star of an Exceed mode. Um, so she still wants this. It's not going to do anything to disincentivize her from doing that.
Yep.
But that just means you get Way of the Warrior, and that's pretty good. But also, I'm boosting something that gives me plus power, while this also gives me plus power. So I guess the actual value of this boost is that it's giving me some of the value of my Exceed mode, maybe more if my opponent's also exceeded. But it also lets me draw a card and isn't making me strike.
Yeah.
Okay, so I have neutral now. I have things that I can do kind of as a treat without striking.
Hmm.
Okay. Also, an incredible boost in the early game before I've exceeded, obviously, where it does nothing at all.
Yeah. Very good in the early game.
Yeah, yeah. Seems like a no brainer of a play. Um, I'm trying to think of any sort of situation where that would be useful, and obviously nothing's coming up.
If the
Tech bait.
opponent exceeds before you,
That's true.
then it
There you
does
go.
something.
Tech bait against somebody who hasn't actually read the boost.
Pretty
I think that
pretty
might be
good
the best I
approach.
can do.
Anyways, despite how much I've talked up Sovereign Glory, and I do genuinely think it's a very stupid ultra. You can also just spend this card as force if you need to CC.
Okay, makes sense. I have better things to do. But like crafting a good hand that I can use to kill my opponent. And 3 gauge and 2 gauge is 5 gauge. I can be like, I don't know, what's a good Red Horizon gauge amount number over the course of the game? It's like 6 or 7, right? It's not a lot. Um,
Reese is notably lower damage than a lot of other Red Horizon characters, so it actually is pretty reasonable to get to an ultra in your sequencing of killing the opponent.
right. Okay, sure. And like lower damage, even factoring in my exceed mode.
Depends, but yeah, you can be. Because like if you start your chain with Gauntlet Flurry, that's a 1 power hit, so like you
Right.
basically didn't hit, you just gained advantage.
Right, and got a gauge to the
And then like
economic.
if you do say Gauntlet Flurry into Chivalry, you have successfully hit the opponent for 6 over the course of 2 strikes. You have built 2 gauge, which means you can now play Sovereign Glory.
True. That's not hard. Um, okay, sure. That makes sense. So it's a mini combo. It's not something that I need to. And honestly, it kind of feels like to make another Noel comparison, it's like Fenrir. Um her 2 gauge ultra,
Yeah,
the grass blake.
that one is a more consistently playable version of Sovereign Glory that is less nuky, which Noelle, speed lady that gains advantage.
Right, more consistent,
Reese,
less nuky.
Power Man who gains advantage.
Right. Yeah, there this is an identifiable trend in their kits. Okay, that makes sense. You have talked up checkmate enough now that I'm extremely curious about it.
All
The
right, all right. So like this ultra is so fucking stupid, it's insane. So like everyone loves Shinryukin. Shinryukin's a pretty awesome ultra, and
Sure.
everyone also loves Mitsushoryukin. It's a pretty awesome ultra.
Yep.
What if you were both of these ultras simultaneously?
Uh-oh.
Now you might go, "What the fuck?" Anyways, let's read this card. 8
One.
printed power for 3 gauge, which notably
Yep.
means that it actually hits for 10.
Yep.
Attacks at range 1 do not hit you. So the defensive utility of Metsushoryu because of the range 1 dodge, and the offensive threat of Shinryukin simultaneously.
Yeah. Yeah, it's 1 power less for when I'm using it for 1 less gauge. Um and it would dodge, and even faster. It would dodge the chip ultra, the bang ultra that is so fast that even Metsu Shoryuken isn't fast enough. That's messed up. That is
It's a really stupid card.
a messed up ultra blue. Um what is the okay, so my opponent uh at range 1 often can't hit me with anything. Like there are several characters who probably don't have anything in their kit at all that could stop this card. They could dodge it, right? They could cross out, and that is definitely a loss for me because I've spent gauge on it.
Yeah,
Um,
cross dive are the answers to this. It's really tragic that we don't have answers to cross or dive in our
sure,
kit
sure.
anywhere at all. Not a
Right.
single
Yeah.
one.
I have lots and lots of ways to deal with that. Um, some characters have like a Tatsu shape that would allow them to move past me and still hit. That's a relevant answer too. But I have just as many answers to that, right? Like if I'm gaining my bonus power, chivalry just crushes a Tatsu, for example. That's no problem. Um,
Yep.
there's not going to be anything short of another range one dodge, right? CQC or something like that, that is going to actually keep me safe, keep my opponent safe from what this card is doing. Totally safe.
Yeah, basically.
And it hits for 10.
Yep.
Yep. All right. Yeah. I'm sold. So,
And then like your worst case is, oh no, I needed to play it on defense, and it's an 8 power version of Matsushora. That's 3 gauge instead of 4. What a tragedy.
right. Right. And it turns out that a ranged dodge makes it a pretty strong defensive option, as you said, defensive utility of that. But winning on defense is also just really good. Um,
Yep. It
okay.
certainly is, says
Yeah.
Reese. Like, holy shit.
Yeah. I'm expecting to do scary things on my turn. If I can also do scary things on my opponent's turn, that means I can just pass turn at range one occasionally. And oh my god, that sounds like such a luxury when I'm playing as this character. I know it's not what I want to be doing.
Yeah, and that's also why having one of the DPs of all time is relevant, because you can pass turn at range 2, and sometimes the opponent does a thing that loses to Gauntlet Flurry.
Right.
Like you have defensive threat at range 2, and you also have like reasonable defensive option at range 3 and 4 with this, and like kind of at 4 at this. And now you're kind of seeing where like it's actually really scary to strike into Reese when he's in Exceed mode, because he can actually reasonably answer defensive mix-ups defensively because he has Shoto tools.
Right. Right.
And then
So
also he has bullshit like this and this.
right. And I'm expecting to be able to get my bonus power when I'm initiating because I'm gaining advantage. I have lots of ways to do that. I'm setting up these combos in my hand. When my opponent gives it to me as well, and I respond and win on defense anyway, I'm like, cool, that's free real estate for Reese. That's game winning potentially because you just gave me
Yeah,
my own combo starter.
Reese is a character that is built to really nicely take advantage of both the defender's advantage in Exceed and also the aggressor's advantage in Exceed, which is a very
Right.
scary thing for a character to be able to do.
Definitely. Okay, cool. Um, tell me about this boost. Hey, mix
It
up.
sucks, and you probably shouldn't play it.
Your opponent must discard a card at random, then you strike. Ugh. As an ultra boost?
Yeah,
Hmm. Okay. Not on checkmate. Like no, that doesn't seem like a
yeah.
difficult read at all.
The tier list on how you should be spending your checkmates is like you want to use it as an attack if you can, you use it as force if you must, and then you boost the boost if you're trying to flex.
Sure. Okay. Yeah. There's not really a world where that's important. Um, it isn't helping at all to, for example, set up Sovereign Glory because I'm spending a card, they're spending a card. I'm not getting hand advantage over them.
Yep.
Okay.
It might help if you suspect that the opponent is holding a defensive threat above your head that you otherwise cannot deal with, and you also need to strike. So
Right.
like the world's jankest parry strike.
Right. Yeah. They have one card in hand and you know that it is an absolutely devastating defensive threat. Okay. Other than that, no. Because if they have two cards in hand, you might not even pull the defensive threat.
Yeah, basically.
Okay. Yeah.
Sometimes you just want to gamble, you know. Gotcha gamers out there.
Sure. Absolutely. Yeah. No. This is, and also, I mean, like flexing on your opponent is a time honored pastime. Like that's you can do that. That's a real thing you can do in Exceed. But if we are playing to win, we checkmate is a lot easier to see a path to victory with than mix up. If you want to play mix up, go
Very
play a season 6 character who has a better boost called mix up.
true.
Um. Okay. Cool. So, uh, I have a stable suite of tools that do some utility functions. I have a really scary exceed mode that I can pretty freely access. I should be gunning for it. My ultras are frosting on top of the cake. I'm expecting to get a lot of value out of them at least once in the game. But in terms of triaging my game plan, exceed first, then threaten scary ultras by building additional gauge.
Yeah, it's kind of like the Hakumen dynamic, where if Hakumen is forced to play Yukikaze before he flips, he's in kind of an awkward position. Same deal
Right.
for Reese. If you absolutely need to play like checkmate, it's probably gonna be checkmate if you have to play one of these. If you
Right.
absolutely must play checkmate to win a strike that otherwise would cause momentum to shift horribly in the opponent's favor, you got to do what you got to do.
Right.
But you don't really want to find yourself in a situation like that. You probably made a lot of play errors leading into needing to do that
Sure.
that you should have not done.
Sure.
Um, I also
Don't
would be
do that.
remiss if I did not talk about, because I kind of skipped over it. We should talk about how to build to three, how to count to three,
Yeah.
and win. Because I noticed when I watched Rose play the character in the tournament that is mostly over now, that she actually was having trouble with that.
Yes.
So let's go over that. So start of the game, we have like a reasonable range 4 mix up. This is technically a part of it, mostly because it's a thing that hits. And then obviously dive.
Yep.
You may notice a problem with a lot of these cards, which is that they all move in,
Yep.
and most of them trade with sweep. A lot of them trade with sweep in not very pleasant ways.
Block.
Block is our answer to that. It also is an unconditional way to build gauge.
Yep.
It is a genuine mix-up threat, similar to with a character like Vega, who has a bunch of
Vega.
dives as well.
Yeah.
Uh, to play block, and it's a very good mix-up threat, especially if the opponent has nothing to actually meaningfully answer it.
Right.
Your worst case, if you play block, is that they cross out, and hopefully they don't have anything meaningful to do at range 6 if that happens. If they do have a meaningful thing to do at range 6, and you're worried about that, maybe play Gallant Defender
Sure.
instead of block.
Sure. That makes sense. So if you're up against Sagat, you don't get gauge, but you maintain space, and now they're in the corner. And then you play block next turn.
Yep. Although, if they
Oh,
cross, you don't maintain positioning. You go to range 3, but range 3 you're like pretty reasonably like suited for. So
right. Be careful of your opponent's defensive spike when you're playing block on turn 2 in that situation, but you've cornered the opponent, and that's pretty good. If they don't have useful things to do at range 6, awesome. I block, and then I spend some time CCing while they walk back into me.
or like if you have the second block, you can block again, and now you have
Yep.
2 gauge, and you haven't spent any life at all,
Yep.
and you just need to hit the opponent with like I don't know chivalry or ballista or something. Ballista for 2 power, pretty mighty. Um, Ballista as an opener is really funny. Obviously, it does no damage, but sometimes it dodges things because lol. Um, Sometimes you just need gauge so badly that you're fine with just taking a numerically awful trade just to build the gauge. You don't generally want to do that. It can be pretty real EX though, because it at least
Okay.
does any damage at all, and
It does
also it's speed 6, which means they
it
can't cross out of it.
it does a damage. Um, hey, that's enough to stun my opponents, often their own, above curve. This would stun Crystal Strike if they are expecting the Tatsu or the dive or something like that. Um, that could be enough depending on the matchup.
Yep. Still not great. Sometimes you do it because it's literally the only thing you have that builds gauge,
It's
and
gauge,
also it
sure.
gains advantage. So like if they call it right, that's unfortunate. If they call it wrong, then you're at range 1 and they're in a mix-up situation, and you're building
Right,
gauge.
right. While we're talking about these early game plays, Blue, I had a quick question about like how important is it that I'm spending these advantage gainers in the early game? I guess another way to ask this question is like, am I likely to reshuffle over the course of the game to get these things back for the late game? Or is the pace that I'm playing at such that I probably won't see these cards again? And I'm giving up. I mean, Bliss is not a great example because it's not a great card anyway, but like it gains advantage and that's relevant for my Exceed mode. If I give that up in the early game, am I setting myself back later?
Don't throw them all away, but you should be using them. Um, like if you consume like 2 or 3 of these getting to exceed mode, which is like most of them, then you're in a bad shape.
Okay.
Um, Consuming ballista is fine because it's not very good and it's hard to set up for in when you're actually combo chaining, because it turns out that you certainly do close into the opponent a lot.
Yeah, I got a lot of different ways to keep myself at like a normal spacing, basically. Like 1 to 3 is kind of where I can stand.
But yeah, like if you have like Ballista Chivalry block in hands, then like yeah, there's 3 gauge. It's reasonably easy to hit with. You probably will take one bad trade and then one basically assault into sweep style straight trade in
Right.
the process of building your 3 gauge and exceeding.
Right. This is not this is not a lot, right? Like this is 3 gauge is not a ton. I have above curve um and on curve things that I can do to help build gauge in most hand compositions. It sounds like the needle that I'm trying to thread, the two needles I'm trying to thread, not take too much damage in the process, and not spend my most important combo glue for when I've exceeded by gaining this advantage, or I'm sorry, by building this gauge in the first place.
Yeah, more or less.
Okay.
You don't really want to take like too many bad trades, and you're Reese. You have a lot of tools that can take really bad trades if you throw them at the wrong time.
Right. Right. Okay.
So luckily, normals are very good at mitigating those problems by just being very mighty attacks. Play normals, they're good.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, a lot of times when you have, I know, in our Vega lesson, the same one where you mentioned that block is Vega's like best opening mix up tool. Um, if you had a handful of normals as Vega in the early game, you're feeling great because you're just planning to brawl for a
Dude,
little
you're
bit.
popping off so hard.
Yeah, you're planning to brawl for a little bit and get your economy going, and then once you've exceeded, you'll do all the dumb Vega stuff that you were hoping to do later. Similar dynamic for Reese. If I got a handful of normals, I'm just going to play Exceed for a little while.
Well, no matter what your hand shape is, you're going to play Exceed for a little while. It's just that normals are going to be in the early game better tools than Reese's actual tools, because even Reese's far and away best card is an attack that basically is just deluxe assault.
Right, right, sure. That is not the most compelling. Again, by the standards of Exceed, many characters have absolutely silly specials. I don't have one of those until I'm in Exceed mode, and then all of my stuff gets kind of silly.
Yeah, basically.
Okay, makes sense. We've talked a little bit about how the normals kind of inflect this game plan. I also can't help but notice that many of them have boosts on them that are uh, not present in the specials and ultras kit.
So true.
How are these impacting what I want to be doing? Because in Exceed mode, when the combo is starting, I don't have time for that. I'm striking every turn I can get. I'm killing the opponent. I don't have time to set up boosts or anything like that. But for the rest of the time, I do. Sounds like I have to play some neutral. Is this just where the neutral's coming from?
Yeah, basically.
Okay.
Um, you don't necessarily need these positioning tools very badly because you're a Shoto and you have decent range coverage off of just the tools that you have innately.
Right.
Despite not actually having a lot of inbuilt out of strike mobility, you have decent in strike mobility to get to positions you want to.
Sure.
So both of these you can just like use as attacks. You're gonna find this as a very consistent trend. Is I'm gonna say, yeah, these do things, but you can like kind of ignore them. I think that the defensive value of focus for Reese is much higher than reading because Reese has some defensive issues.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
would
Sure.
probably prefer playing focus over playing reading. Also, 6 power focus is very, very strong.
Six power focus is very strong. Being able to steal advantage back from an assault is very strong. It sounds like my slows in general are, especially in Exceed mode, are pretty rude into my opponent's own advantage gainers.
Yep. So these are all like I would say mostly attacks. Reese's mere existence is +2 power, so he doesn't necessarily need fierce, nor does he like need power in the early game like power in the early game can do useful things like make Gauntlet Flurry into an attack that isn't a giant meme, but like
Right.
you're giving up 2 speed 7s at the opponent for 3. Meh.
Yeah. Sure.
So like I would say that the offensive threat in Exceed mode of a 157, like Nightwave but good, is probably more relevant. And also like the early game utility of I just like confirm gauge and I trade like decent but not great. Nice is nice. So like a pressure tool isn't necessarily what Reese needs. So I would also put this in the attack pile. All right, now let's talk about the real ones. I guess technically parry exists. You should parry Raijin Oath.
Otherwise, block because block is gauge.
Yeah, yeah. Anyways, the actual real ones. If the opponent has something you need to tech it. Otherwise, dive is an attack that is designed to carry basically any boost you can put on it very nicely, including our one real boost. It carries backstep and lunge very nicely.
Oh, true. Yeah, this gives dodge. This gives dive a lot of range bending properties while still being able to get its dodge effect.
Or not, like it hits basically everywhere, and also a lot of the time it dodges.
Yeah,
Um, Obviously we care a lot about a sweep as an attack. It's our most premium threat outside of checkmate, and also arguably Sovereign Glory, but like things that cost gauge. I am comparing this to things that cost gauge, so
yeah.
you can already tell how I feel about this as an attack.
8 power sweep's
Uh,
pretty good. Turns out.
yeah, light allows us to confirm hits, and it might allow us to confirm hits safely, and that's nice in the early game. So sometimes you need to boost light, but you're not very happy to do it.
Right, because you're losing a sweep. And in this is not quite the way that the math would really work out, but kind of in practice, it feels like by boosting light when I'm in exceed mode, it's like +2 speed -2 power.
Yeah,
Um,
basically.
because I would prefer to strike to maintain my exceed mode, and I'm relying on my opponent to do it for me.
Yeah, like we're evaluating the boost mostly for their early game utility, which is why I say like, yeah, this like allows you to probably confirm gauge at the cost of late game power.
Right,
But like, I don't know, you're Reese. You don't necessarily need every source of power that exists. So you can probably give
right.
up a sweep.
I can probably get across the finish line without it, but man, is having the 8 power. I'm going to stun you. I'm going to gain advantage from that stun. The threat of that is so relevant.
Yep.
Okay. Okay.
Similarly, another one of Reese's deluxe threats, and a card that ignores armor at all.
Yep.
Uh, the boost sure does allow you to confirm hits. The funny thing is the main thing that allows you to confirm hits with is like, you know, these cards, which mostly are fine at hitting anyways. So it's not necessarily something you need, but sometimes the opponent does something that requires you to boost defend to actually be able to confirm these. So,
Right.
use it when you need it. Or if your hand says, ah man, I really could use defend right now.
Otherwise, this is a mix-up card. Reese is a mix-up character, despite the boost mix-up not being what he wants to do. Spike is going obviously going to be relevant as part of my mix-up arsenal in the late game.
Yep. And also defend is on average a worse boost than light, and Reese's kit doesn't make defend obviously as good as light.
Yeah. Yep. That makes sense. Um, Yeah, seems pretty straightforward to me. All of these things, it sounds like you mentioned I'm going to be doing fairly early in the game. Um, once the late game is happening, or once I've exceeded, is it already the late game because I'm going to kill my opponent so fast, or is there kind of like this? Does a mid game exist for Reese? In other words, I guess is the question.
Um, yes, unless you have like a god hand from when you exceed,
Okay,
which you probably are not going to have a god
sure.
hand the moment you exceed.
So the mid game is going to be spent doing some economic management. It sounds like.
Yeah, the mid game is the scramble where the opponent is like, okay, Reese has activated his probable win con. I need to make it so that he is so far down that he cannot come back.
Okay. Okay. And that's interesting because what they're doing in order to engender that situation is probably striking into me, which is giving me my boost anyway.
That or setting up boosted situations that are very difficult for Reese to answer.
Right. With his fairly anemic boost kit. So, okay. Um we're kind of moving into counterplay at this point, and I wanted to ask like one more question about economy before we got there, but it sounds like that is the dynamic, right? Like I exceed, I am scary. My opponent needs to progress their game plan enough that I'm dead before I can kill them.
Yeah, basically.
Okay. Sounds good. The economy question I had is like other than the obvious force targets, other than Nightwave and maybe Gallant Defender, are there any other cards that I'm okay to spend as force? Once I've exceeded, am I cool to spend Gage's force like if I need to?
Yeah.
All that stuff is kind of like things free up a little bit once I've exceeded.
Yep. Your
Okay.
ultras are stupid to tell, but if you need a hand, you need a hand. Similarly, you can spend your ultras as force.
Okay. And the probably what I'm because my what I'm spending it on is almost definitely change cards because my movement tools are as long as I can make use of my in strike movement well enough. My movement tools are such that I probably don't need to take the move action super often, other than to get out of the way of a Raijin Oath or something like that. But I really need a hand, so gauges or uh, force will probably be going towards the change cards action.
Correct.
Okay, sounds good. Any other notes about Reese's economy, or really any notes about Reese at all? Because the other question I have is about how to stop him once he's started, and that sounds scary enough. But anything else that you wanted to mention from Reese's side of the table before we get there?
Dude, he's so sick. You have to try him out. He's so fucking fun.
He sounds fun. Yeah, he sounds like a good time. I feel like I have not quite found my Red Horizon character yet, so I'm looking forward to trying him out.
I've tried
Um,
Heidi. She's actually pretty awesome too.
yeah, I should. I haven't explored Red Horizon super extensively at all. I'm trying to keep myself unspoiled for the lessons on those characters, but those are running out. This is one of the last ones I've got. So yeah, pretty soon I'm going to dig into Red Horizon for real, I think. But yeah, before I get to that, um, uh, I also might be up against a Reese at some point, and I really want to know how to function in the late game. What kind of counterplay does a character who can do this kind of thing have?
I already mentioned a few, which is like outvalue him in the early game to mid game, such that it just is very very difficult for him to actually come back. So like the amount of mix-ups that he needs to win, to win the game, changes depending on the opponent's health, especially relative to his health, because the closer your healths are to even, the better chivalry is as a tool to just say fuck you, I'm trading and I'm going to
Right.
trade up and I'm going to win the game.
Right. If I have 5 life left, and landing chivalry is either going to kill me or get me to grasp range for my opponent killing me, that's actually really scary for me.
Yep.
Okay.
Uh,
Okay.
Boosts are pretty good at doing that. Just calling mix-ups is pretty good at doing that. Rushing him down before he actually is able to get online is like pretty decent at doing that if you're a character that has more tempo than he does.
Okay. So in the early game, before I'm up against the real Reese, just do what my character does well.
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay. Make things awkward, rush him down, whatever that is. Progress my own
Things
game
are
plan.
Yeah, things are bad if he exceeds at like 25 health or something.
Now it's just time to call a bunch of mix-ups.
Yep, pretty much.
Okay. And he's never going to be doing something that is totally unanswerable unless I've run myself out of options. So just run good defense and hope at that point. Um,
Yep.
but ideally, I've done more than 5 damage to him before he's managed to exceed. So I'm trying to make that as awkward for him as I can in the meantime. What about
Mhm.
once he's actually here?
Uh, his neutral is entirely shaped around hitting you and continuing to hit you. So, like, setting up a boost that allows you to prevent him from hitting you so that he doesn't gain advantage, or you like win numerically, will put you in a better state for the following strike. Like, eventually you have to just call the mix lol.
Right. But so
But
I
like
so
boosts are
I
pretty good because he doesn't have them in exceed mode for the most part.
sure. So I put down a boost. I use that to dissuade him or make it more awkward for him to strike into so I can win on my turn or whatever when he does strike it. Prevent him from gaining advantage. Now cool, I get to take a turn. Awesome. At some point I might have to pay out that boost. And then I'm striking into him and he likes that. So if I'm not gaining advantage myself, is the rationale just like I that boost needs to allow me to win harder than what I'm giving Reese by striking into him?
Yeah, probably.
Okay. Okay, because like it does, the fact that it feels so awkward to continue hitting him in exceed mode is sort of concerning to me.
If you're
Um,
a character that has good advantage chains, then things are a lot more chill as far as that goes because Reese will just not have an ability. He needs to get a
Sure.
turn to actually have an
And
ability.
and often characters who don't have incredible boosts and are instead more offense oriented often do have some advantage chains. Um, so odds are my character can do one or the other into Reese and have like a thinkable game plan into him at least. It might not be a perfectly one matchup by any means. He's very strong in Exceed mode, but I have a plan for what to do in that situation at least.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other things that he particularly struggles with that we should call out or highlight?
Um, he struggles when you're having an off day and you just can't do anything right.
Yeah, and I mean like this is a mix-up
He
character, right?
yeah,
It's
he magnifies like skill differences and also just like bad or good plays because that's like literally what the exceed mode does.
yeah. It makes him win harder when he wins, and it denies him the ability to win harder when he doesn't win. So win a lot if you can. Well, cool. Makes sense to me. The last question I have sounds like kind of a formality at this point, which is, are there any other characters who play like Reese? It seems like yes, absolutely, and they're all Shotos. We brought several of them out and talked about them during the lesson already.
Yeah, you should check out Ryu and Ken and like maybe Guile. Check you out some Ragna and Jin and Noelle, especially Noelle. Lena is very similar to Reese actually.
Maybe some Soul
Um,
Bad Guy.
yeah, definitely Soul Bad Guy. Maybe some Mei, some Geo, maybe some Yuzuriha even.
Yep. Man,
Lots
a
and
lot.
lots of options.
Man, a lot of these characters are sick. Maybe I do like Reese.
Yeah,
Well, I'm sold. Those are all characters you should check out if you like Reese. Much more likely, the situation is that you are a fan of one of those characters and have not dug into Exceed's early days and are looking for a Red Horizon main like I am. If you are a Ken or a Viper or a Mei or a Ragna or a Jin or a Noelle player, maybe go check out Reese. He seems like a good time. Um, and Blue, Reese was like your first main. Is that correct?
yeah.
I can think of very few uh, greater praises for the character being sick than it got Blue to like check the game out and take it seriously. That's kind of neat.
It's true.
Yeah. All right, folks. I think I've got what I need to go try out Reese. Super excited to do that. I hope everybody at home learned something. Blue, as always, thank you so much for your time and your expertise. I really appreciate it.
Hmm.
It was always a blast talking to you. Um, I will see everybody for the next one. There's not too many left, but I will see everybody hopefully soon for another one. Goodbye, everybody.
Bye.